The silence of Harmony Station. The binary suns of the Kepler 442 system cast long shadows across Harmony Station as Dr. Michael Harrison finished his morning rounds at the medical center. 43 years had passed since the first colonists arrived on this distant world, and now over 3 million humans called it home. The terraformed atmosphere smelled of pine forests and ocean salt, a careful recreation of Earth's most beloved scents. Children laughed in the schoolyards while farmers tended vast golden fields that stretched to the horizon. Michael's wife, Captain Lisa Harrison, commanded the colony's small defense fleet of 12 patrol vessels. She stood on the bridge of the HMS Guardian, running routine drills with her crew. The biggest threat they had faced in 2 decades was an asteroid that had wandered too close to their shipping lanes. Peace had made them soft, perhaps, but it had also made them happy. Their teenage son, Daniel, was preparing for his first year at the colony's university, hoping to become an engineer like his grandfather. The colony thrived on trade and scientific research. They had discovered unique minerals in the planet's crust that could enhance faster-than-light communication. Scientists from Earth visited regularly, and the colony had become a hub of innovation and discovery. The markets bustled with merchants selling everything from locally grown food to handcrafted art. Musicians performed in the squares every evening, and the colony's symphony orchestra had just recorded their first album to send back to Earth. Governor James Mitchell walked through the central plaza, greeting citizens with genuine warmth. He had been elected 3 times, each victory larger than the last. Under his leadership, Harmony Station had grown from a struggling frontier outpost to a jewel of human colonization. The crime rate was nearly 0, unemployment didn't exist, and every child received excellent education. He often said that Harmony Station represented humanity at its best: cooperative, innovative, and peaceful. The first sign of trouble came from Deep Space Sensor Array at 1447 local time. Technician Robert Kim noticed unusual gravitational distortions at the edge of the system. 17 objects had appeared from nowhere, too large to be asteroids moving too purposefully to be natural phenomena. He ran the data through every database, searching for matches to known ship designs. Nothing came close. The objects were massive, each one the size of a small moon, covered in what appeared to be crystalline structures that reflected light in impossible ways. Robert immediately contacted Captain Harrison. Within minutes, she had the entire defense fleet on high alert. Governor Mitchell was pulled from an education committee meeting. Dr. Harrison received an emergency summons to prepare the medical facilities for potential casualties. No one knew what was coming, but the synchronized response showed that years of peace hadn't completely dulled their readiness. The Xerathi ships, for that's what they called themselves in their first and only transmission, moved through, space like predators stalking prey. Their message was brief, transmitted in perfect English despite humanity having no previous contact with their species. This sector has been claimed by the Xerathi Empire. Your presence is a contamination. You will be cleansed. No negotiation. No warning period. No chance for evacuation. Captain Harrison tried desperately to establish communication. She offered to evacuate the colony, to negotiate boundaries, to establish trade relations, anything to avoid conflict. The Xerathi responded by opening fire. Beams of purple energy, unlike anything in human scientific understanding, tore through space. The HMS Guardian's shields, designed to deflect micrometeorites and radiation, offered no more protection than tissue paper. The patrol vessel Endeavour was vaporized in seconds, its crew of 48 people gone before they could send a distress signal. The remaining ships scattered, trying to buy time for the colony to evacuate. But there was nowhere to run. The nearest human system was 6 months away at maximum speed, and the colony's evacuation ships could hold perhaps 50,000 people, not 3 million. Captain Harrison made a decision that would haunt humanity forever. She ordered all ships to ram the Xerathi vessels, hoping their sacrifice might damage the attackers enough to give the colony time. Her crew didn't hesitate. They knew their families were below. The HMS Guardian accelerated to maximum speed, all weapons firing, heading straight for the lead Xerathi ship. The impact created a brilliant explosion visible from the planet's surface. But when the light faded, the Xerathi vessel remained undamaged, protected by shields that seemed to bend space itself. On the surface, panic had given way to grim determination. Parents rushed children to underground shelters that had been built for storm protection, never imagining they would need them for war. Dr. Harrison and his medical staff prepared for casualties, though deep down they knew if the Zarathi weapons hit the colony directly, there would be no wounded to treat. Governor Mitchell stood in the command center, broadcasting everything to Earth, ensuring that humanity would know what happened here. The bombardment began at 1523. The Zarathi weapons didn't just destroy, they disintegrated matter at the molecular level. Buildings didn't collapse. They simply ceased to exist. The beautiful forest that had taken decades to grow vanished in purple fire. The oceans boiled away in minutes, leaving only glass where sand had been. The shelter systems, designed to withstand natural disasters, offered no protection against technology that could unmake matter itself. Daniel Harrison was in his chemistry class when the attack began. His teacher, Mrs. Chen, tried to maintain calm as she led the students toward the shelter. They made it halfway before the ceiling above them turned purple and disappeared. Daniel's last thought was of the engineering projects he would never complete, the bridges he would never build. His parents died not knowing their son was already gone. Dr. Harrison was treating injured refugees when the medical center was targeted. He had just enough time to look at the picture of his family on his desk before everything ended. Captain Harrison's final transmission from the HMS Guardian was a promise that humanity would remember, that humanity would respond. The Zarathi weapon consumed her ship moments later. Governor Mitchell remained at his post until the end, transmitting sensor data and video feeds to Earth. His last words were not of anger or fear, but of love for the colony he had helped build and sadness for the future that had been stolen. The command center was one of the last structures to fall, ensuring that Earth would have complete records of the genocide. The attack lasted exactly 3 hours and 17 minutes. When the Zarathi ships departed, nothing remained of Harmony Station. The planet itself had been stripped of atmosphere, its surface turned to volcanic glass. 3 million people had been erased from existence, their dreams and hopes and loves reduced to atoms scattered in space. The Zarathi left behind a single beacon, broadcasting a message in multiple languages. Let this serve as warning to all who would contaminate Zarathi space. The automated distress buoys, launched during the first minutes of the attack, carried the full record of Harmony Station's destruction toward Earth. They traveled for 3 weeks through the void, their precious cargo of horror and loss protected in hardened memory cores. When they arrived at Earth's outer monitoring stations, the technician who received them thought at first the data was corrupted. Surely no one could destroy an entire colony so thoroughly. Surely 3 million people couldn't just disappear. But as the video played, as the sensor data was analyzed, as the final transmissions were decoded, the terrible truth became undeniable. Harmony Station was gone. The Zarathi had committed genocide with the casual efficiency of someone swatting an insect. They had murdered children, destroyed families, erased an entire branch of human civilization, and they had done it while calling humanity a contamination. The news spread across Earth like wildfire. Every screen on the planet showed the last images from Harmony Station. Parents held their children tighter. World leaders canceled all other meetings. The United Earth Parliament convened an emergency session. For the first time in human history, there was no debate between nations, no political maneuvering, no hesitation. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would respond with the full might of its combined military forces. Admiral Catherine Black was chosen to lead the response. A veteran of the Mars Rebellion and the Titan Crisis, she had never lost a battle. But this wasn't about winning or losing anymore. This was about sending a message to the galaxy that humanity would not be victimized, would not be erased, would not go quietly into the night. The Reckoning of the Zarathi. The assembly of Earth's revenge fleet took 6 weeks. Every shipyard in the solar system worked around the clock, refitting civilian vessels with weapons, updating military ships with experimental technology, and constructing new weapons platforms that pushed the boundaries of human engineering. Admiral Black commanded from the dreadnought Vengeance, a ship that had been considered too dangerous to deploy until now. Its main weapon, the stellar collapse generator, had been banned by Earth's own military ethics board. That ban no longer mattered. The fleet numbered 300 vessels when it departed from Earth. Unlike the small patrol ships that had defended Harmony Station, these were purpose-built war machines. The smallest destroyer carried more firepower than entire national militaries had possessed a century ago. The largest dreadnoughts were mobile fortresses, their hulls lined with weapons that could crack moons. But more importantly, every ship carried something the Zarathi had never encountered: human rage focused into purpose. Commander David Chen, whose sister had been the teacher who died trying to save her students on Harmony Station, piloted one of the new Phantom-class stealth ships. These vessels could bend light around themselves, becoming invisible to most sensors. His mission was to scout ahead, to find the Zarathi and map their defenses. What he found changed humanity's understanding of the galaxy. The Zarathi Empire sprawled across 37 star systems. They had destroyed not just Harmony Station, but 17 other species who had dared to exist in what they considered their territory. Entire civilizations had been wiped out for the crime of existing in the wrong place. The Zarathi believed themselves to be the only true life in the galaxy. Everything else was contamination to be cleansed. They had never encountered resistance because they had never left survivors to mount any. Admiral Black studied the intelligence reports with cold fury. The Zarathi had technology advantages, yes, but they had a weakness. They had never fought a war. They had only committed massacres against unprepared victims. They didn't understand tactics beyond overwhelming force. They had no concept of guerrilla warfare, no experience with an enemy that could strike back. They were about to receive an education in human warfare. The first strike came at the Zarathi border world of Kalos 7. It was a military depot, storing the weapons used in their genocides. Commander Chen's stealth ships deployed antimatter mines around the planet's orbital stations, while the main fleet waited just outside sensor range. When the mines detonated simultaneously, the explosions were visible from 3 systems away. 20 Zarathi ships and 8 orbital platforms vanished in nuclear fire before they knew they were under attack. The Zarathi response was predictable. They sent their entire border fleet to Kalos 7, expecting to find and destroy the attackers with superior firepower. They found empty space. Admiral Black had already moved the fleet to attack 3 other border worlds simultaneously. By the time the Zarathi arrived at Kalos 7, their shipyards at Thexa, Morvac, and Zenthera were burning ruins. The Zarathi had never experienced the loss of their own people. When the first casualty reports reached their homeworld, their leadership couldn't process what was happening. They had destroyed dozens of species without suffering a single loss. Now thousands of Zarathi were dead, their supposedly invincible ships floating as debris in space. The contamination they had tried to eliminate was fighting back. Admiral Black's strategy was elegant in its brutality. She divided the fleet into wolf packs, small groups that could strike quickly and disappear before the Zarathi could respond. They targeted infrastructure first: shipyards, fuel depots, communication arrays. Without these, the Zarathi's technological advantage meant nothing. Ships without fuel couldn't fly. Weapons without power couldn't fire. An empire without communication couldn't coordinate defense. The Battle of Zarathi Prime began 3 months after the fleet left Earth. By then, half the Zarathi Empire was in flames. Their military, never tested in real combat, had collapsed into chaos. Different sectors accused others of incompetence. Their Supreme Council argued about strategy, while human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts, leaving destruction in their wake. Admiral Black broadcast a message to Zarathi Prime in their own language, learned from captured databases. You called us contamination. You murdered 3 million innocent people. You have committed genocide against 17 species. Today you learn what happens when humanity is pushed to war. Surrender unconditionally, or face the same fate you gave Harmony Station. The Zarathi response was to launch their entire remaining fleet, over 200 ships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humanity had built. They formed up in their traditional formation, the same one they had used to destroy Harmony Station and countless other worlds. They expected the humans to flee at the sight of such overwhelming force. Instead, Admiral Black smiled. She had been waiting for this moment. The Zarathi had gathered their entire military might in one place, exactly as she had planned. She gave a simple order: deploy the Stella Collapse Generator. The weapon had been theoretical until 6 months ago. Scientists had said it was impossible, that the energy requirements were beyond human capability. But the death of 3 million people had motivated humanity to achieve the impossible. The generator created an artificial singularity, a miniature black hole that existed for exactly 17 seconds before evaporating. 17 seconds was more than enough. Space itself seemed to scream as the weapon activated. The fabric of reality twisted and tore. The Zarathi fleet, so confident in their superiority, had no defense against physics itself being weaponized. Ships were pulled into the singularity, crushed to points smaller than atoms. The massive vessels that had destroyed Harmony Station were reduced to nothing in seconds. 200 ships became dust, then less than dust, then nothing at all. But Admiral Black wasn't finished. The human fleet surrounded Zarathi Prime, weapons charged and ready. The planet below housed 15 billion Zarathi. Military commanders, scientists, families, children. For a long moment, the Admiral considered giving the order to fire. It would be justice, some would say. The same fate the Zarathi had given to so many others. She thought of the families on Harmony Station. She thought of Captain Lisa Harrison's sacrifice, of Dr. Michael Harrison treating patients until the end, of young Daniel Harrison who would never build his bridges. She thought of 3 million voices silenced forever. The temptation to return genocide for genocide was overwhelming. Then she made a decision that defined humanity's place in the galaxy. She broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring every Zarathi and every other species listening would hear. We are not like you. We could destroy your world as you destroyed ours. We have the power to erase your entire species from existence, but we choose to be better. Your military is destroyed. Your empire is broken. You will never again have the power to commit genocide, but we will not become the monsters you are. The terms of surrender were simple but absolute. The Zarathi Empire was dissolved. Their weapons technology was destroyed. They were confined to their home system, forbidden from developing FTL travel for 1,000 years. Human monitoring stations would be placed throughout their system. Any attempt to rebuild military capabilities would be met with immediate response. They would live, but they would never again threaten another species. The message to the galaxy was clear. Humanity could be peaceful, could be diplomatic, could build beautiful colonies like Harmony Station where all were welcome. But if forced to war, humanity would respond with calculated fury. They had the power to destroy entire star systems but chose restraint. They had the capability for genocide but chose justice. As the fleet departed Zarathi Prime, leaving behind a broken but living world, Admiral Black stood on the bridge of the Vengeance and spoke to her crew. We came here for vengeance. We achieved victory. But most importantly, we showed the galaxy who we really are. We are not contamination. We are not weak. We are humanity. And we protect our own while choosing mercy when we hold the power of destruction. The journey home took 4 months. When the fleet arrived at Earth, they were greeted not with celebration, but with solemn recognition of what had been lost and what had been preserved. Memorials were erected for Harmony Station, for the 3 million lives lost, for the innocents that had died with them, but also monuments to the choice made at Zarathi Prime, the moment humanity held ultimate power and chose to be better than their enemies. The galaxy took notice. Species that had hidden in fear of the Zarathi emerged. Civilizations that had never made contact reached out to humanity. The message was universal. Humans were not to be trifled with, but they could also be trusted. They would fight with terrifying efficiency if threatened, but would not become the monsters they fought. A new colony ship was launched toward the Kepler 442 system. They would not rebuild Harmony Station. That chapter was closed forever. But they would establish New Harmony, a memorial colony where the descendants of the original colonists could live and remember. The planet's surface, turned to glass by Zarathi weapons, would be left untouched as a reminder of what had been lost. Years later, when historians wrote about the Zarathi War, they would note that it lasted exactly 6 months from the destruction of Harmony Station to the surrender of the Zarathi Empire. 3 million humans died. The entire Zarathi military was destroyed. But the most important outcome was not the victory but the choice. The moment humanity held the power to commit genocide and chose justice instead. The galaxy learned that humans could be pushed to terrible violence but would not lose their humanity in the process. They would protect their own with frightening determination, but would not become the evil they fought. They would remember their dead by being better than their killers, and any species that mistook human kindness for weakness would learn, as the Zarathi had, that humanity's mercy was a choice, not a limitation. The story of Harmony Station became legend throughout human space and beyond. Parents told their children about the colony that had lived in peace, the people who had died as martyrs, and the fleet that had brought justice without becoming monsters. It was a warning and a promise. Humanity would always choose peace first, but if forced to war, they would win. And even in victory, they would remember what made them human. The Zerathi, confined to their single system, became a living reminder of humanity's duality. They existed because humans chose to let them. They lived because humanity decided that justice was not the same as revenge. Every day of their continued existence was proof that humans, even when holding ultimate power, would choose to be better. And that choice, more than any weapon or victory, defined humanity's place among the stars.